pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, and we do have a quorum, and so the next piece of business is trustee reappointment, oath of office, which is me. So
You stand? Yep.
Would you want to turn your microphone on?
Yep.
Oh, got it, got it.
sorry, I forgot about the microphone. Okay.
Please raise your right hand. Do you, Marilee Bakeezer, solemnly affirm that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Michigan, and that you will faithfully discharge the duties of the member of the Board of Trustees of Traverse Area District Library according to the best of your abilities?
I will.
Please sign the oath
Okay.
and give it to Vicki.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda is the approval of the agenda, and I'll entertain a motion. Okay. Second. Thank you. It's been moved and second. Are there any questions regarding the agenda before we vote? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next is public comment. Seeing no one running to the microphone, we'll move on. And the annual meeting. So at this time, we are doing the election of officers. We will need a motion. It's all written out on the pages, but I need a motion and a second, please.
I would make the motion to put the slate of candidates to the board to vote on. Mary Lee Bakeezer, President. Bakeezer. Paul Deno for Vice President. Susan Odgers for Treasurer. And Sam, what's your last name, Sam? Jedden for Secretary.
I'll support that.
Okay. Any questions prior to the vote? Okay, all those who agree, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
You want to play musical chairs now or later?
Vicki, what, you were kind of giving the directions.
That's the
Oh, that's cool. Okay. Did you take yours off?
Oh, whoa.
No, I don't want to give it up.
Uh-oh, you may have a beauty on there. There you go. Okay.
VP tattoo.
Okay, and next on the, before we move on to the next thing, I do want the board to recognize the two outgoing officers, Joe and Mike. So if we give them a little round of applause.
Thank you.
Oh, shucks.
Oh yeah, hold that, continue that, work. Okay, next on the agenda are the committee appointments. And so, it's blank at this point. So the first one is Policy and Personnel Committee. So who's running for chair?
Who was the chair last time?
I was. Yep.
I'll be the chair at this
Yeah,
one.
I would like Jennifer to volunteer.
Okay.
Voluntold.
And then remaining on the committee is you, Mike?
Well, I have a question to ask about that. Is there anything to be gained by rotating people through committees or just simply reconstituting them as formed? I mean, as a matter of board interest, is there anything, it just occurred to me that we don't really talk about when we do that. Do we need to mix it up at all? Give everybody a perspective on the other two parts of the governance?
All you board
process? Matters not to me. I just want to ask the question before we.
I think there's a value to that. I mean, I do think that, over time, you don't want to certainly have all the expertise leave the board, but a certain amount of rotation and new perspectives would be valuable.
I agree.
Yeah. Well, I've been on all of them, so, I'm not, I'm not looking for it for me. I just want to know if other people want to change around. This is when you do that.
Okay.
Otherwise, we just reform the committees.
And the meeting times can change too.
That's true. Yeah. All of it's malleable.
Okay. All right. If anybody wants to switch, we're looking for 2 people on the Policy and Personnel Committee. Right now, it's Mike
Me and Sam
Jennifer.
and Jennifer
and Sam.
and Jennifer.
Y'all want to stay on yours? Okay.
Yeah, that being said, I do.
Did-
But I am amicable if somebody else would like my spot, I do. I certainly don't want to.
Same here. That's what I'm saying is I don't feel like I have a turf to protect on the
Okay.
Policy and Personnel Committee at all. None.
Okay. Next committee is Finance and Facilities and Service Committees. Currently, Susan, you are the chair. Do you wish to stay as chair?
She's a treasurer.
Oh, the treasurer. Oh, yeah. I mean, I knew that, but I forgot that. Okay, and Paul, do you want to
Yeah,
stay
I'd
on?
like to stay on.
Okay, and who's the other person? Oh, Joe. Okay,
It is.
all right,
Like to stay
okay.
if I have to.
Yes. Okay, I'll entertain a motion for this slate on the committee appointees. Okay,
Supported.
okay, any questions prior to the vote? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay.
Now I get that stuff.
Yeah, next is the approval of board meeting schedule for February 2020, yikes. February 2025, and then January 2026. And that is before you.
Mary Lee,
Yes?
I just wanted to point out a couple of things.
Yes.
The strategic planning, they want to do a board retreat, but the committee, the company that's being put forward tonight is not available until June. So you'll notice there isn't a board retreat until September.
Okay,
So unless you all want to change that, we will be at Peninsula and it should take about an hour and a half. And also just noticing that our December meeting, typically we're the 3rd Thursday of the month, but December we move to the 2nd, just because it gets so close to the holidays.
okay. Yes? Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So Michelle, does that mean at our retreat, we're also having our visit to Peninsula for our regular meeting?
Yeah.
We're gonna do both?
Yeah,
Okay.
I thought it might be nice because Vicky's very involved and her board members tend to show up so we can get some of their input too.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions regarding the proposed schedule for February 2025 through January 2026? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I make the motion, we use the library services hour for 2025 and 2026 as provided.
Thanks, Paul. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next is the operational hours for the TADL and branch, which includes closures, and this is for 2025 and 2026, correct? Okay, I'll entertain a motion. Oh, Susan? You made a motion?
Yeah, I can, so moved, but I have a question too.
Second.
Okay, any questions?
Yeah, Michelle.
Susan?
Thank you, Mary Lee. For the Kingsley, the minutes talked, or the reports talked about being back open by spring. Do we need to amend the schedule at all, just kind of month-by-month basis where Kingsley's concerned with their hours, or just leave it as it is?
Yeah, let's just leave it as, because we don't know yet. We're waiting on the carpet company, so once we have those dates, then, you kind of already gave me approval, I'll make sure everybody knows, we'll publish it, and they're hoping it'll be closed about 2 weeks or less, so.
Okay.
I have a-
Susan, you, oh,
I'm sorry, I have a
Sam.
comment if I could.
No, that's okay.
I brought this up before, and I'm just looking at the library closure dates and the holiday schedule. I'm just sort of struck, just as a community, that we are sort of, I guess for a better word, we don't pay much reverence to Martin Luther King Day and Juneteenth. And I know that that is maybe not feasible this year. I don't know what kind of, activities we have in June especially. I think maybe with childcare and TCAPs, I mean, there's other considerations in January, but in June especially, I think it would be a nice signal to the community, just kind of our commitment to our core values. If we entertain the idea of closing, or if maybe not closing, doing some kind of opportunity for staff to take part in other events or something on that date. I don't know if that's feasible. I don't know if it's desirable. Maybe it's too important for us to be there, but it's something I'd like us to consider and discuss at some point, if not today. I think it would be an important thing to do.
Just so typically, because everything else is closed, we're really busy.
Mhm.
And that's why TADL has always been open on those days, President's Day, there's a lot of those federal holidays that we are open. And like Monday, MLK Day, we're doing a special story time, we have a special guest coming. So that's what we tend to do is provide things to the community on those days. And, but I think making sure our managers know that if a staff member wants to go do something, we can do that. Juneteenth, we usually participate in any community celebration. We'll take the bookmobile or the book bike to it. So we have staff members going to that. So that's kind of traditionally what we do.
Yeah, I'm just looking, I mean, we do have some secular type holidays like a Labor Day. It feels like Juneteenth is something that's not really well established by tradition in the community yet. Maybe we could take a leadership role on that, but if it's important for us to be open to, so that the community has a place to, learn more about these things, I understand that sentiment as well. So I just wondered what everybody's thoughts were on that.
Well, I like the idea, but I don't like closing because I think those two holidays in particular need a focus, an organized focus. I mean, if we just said, hey, we're gonna take the day off and close the doors, nobody really benefits from Martin Luther King or Juneteenth. But if we're open, we can design programs for those days in particular that will bring the focus I think you wanna give them. That would be my thought.
I think that's fair. I mean, my larger point is just if somebody doesn't step up and say these are important days to our community, I don't know if that's a role for us or that's something that would be important for us to do. But I'm comfortable with, staying open. I just think it's a conversation worth having, and somebody needs to take a greater leadership role in sort of emphasizing these holidays so the community has a greater understanding of what they represent.
We can
Yes,
add it to
Jennifer.
the policy committee agenda. And actually, someone just did a survey on our librarian listserv about Juneteenth, so I could pull that data and see what other libraries are doing.
I'd be interested.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then you can give a report at the next board meeting? Okay, thank you. Jennifer, you had your hand up.
Wait, is this off or on?
I'm not techie, but I think they're ready.
Thanks for the navigation. No, I just want to really appreciate, Sam, you bringing it up and wanting to use to sort of figure out a way that the library can lead on an issue that is so core to our community. I appreciate the thinking, and I love the idea of bringing it to the policy committee to figure out, is there a policy that we could enact that would help amplify that? And then also, I think the discussion, Joe, around like programming for that day is really rich. And just to sort of echo what Sam said, maybe we can also, maybe starting at the policy committee or maybe bring it back here to think about what that programming could look like. Even sort of doing something publicly that says why we're open on this day. This is an important day to us, and we're open because it's so important. And so we're leading in that, like, a sort of public message or an editorial or something like that in the paper. But I do Just want to appreciate that you brought it up last year. I heard it then, and I think it's really important. I'm grateful that you did it again today.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and we have we have, Susan, you did the, okay, and who was the second?
Jennifer.
Sorry. Okay, any further questions? Seeing none, I'm assuming you're ready to vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, next. Oh, now we gotta do 2026. Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion that we use the dates provided on this proposal.
Okay,
I'll second.
okay, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Seeing none, motion carries. All right, next is, oops, I'm on the wrong page. Oh, the annual conflict of interest statement and annual ethics statements. We just need to fill out the form, correct?
Yep.
Okay, so everybody please fill out the form before you leave here. Thank you. Okay, moving on to the consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion to either move things off or to accept the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Okay,
I'll second.
thank you. Any questions? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Seeing none, motion carries. Thank you. Okay, now we're on to director's report. Go
So-
Michelle.
Thank you. So, you have my written reports, but I have a bunch of other things to add. I'll start with the good stuff. So Jenkins Group does awards every year, and the library got one, and it's for a gold medal winner for our social media account, for any library, bookstore, or institution. So just a big shout out before she left to Heather, because Heather wrangles everyone who contributes and really just makes sure it's up to date. She checks it 3 times a day for comments. We even got a little medal, so we'll be framing that and putting it in our office, in the admin office. Another great thing is we welcomed our intern Hannah today. She couldn't be here, it was her first day, but she is a senior at GVSU, and Hannah is thinking about going to library school, so we'll see what happens, but Hannah will be here until April, and we're looking forward to working with Hannah. And then, now onto the slightly maybe not so positive news. We did get a challenge in December. It was not to remove a book, it was to take the book and put it behind a desk. The book was called Granddad's Pride, and it's about a granddad whose partner, Gramps, passed away, and it's about when him and Gramps used to go to Pride events. And in the pictures, there is someone wearing leather clothing, which could be perceived as bondage clothing. And so they were upset about that picture. But our policy is pretty clear about these things, in our collection development policy, that we don't remove or put materials in separate areas based on content or imagery in that book. So I did reply to that person. I haven't heard back yet, so not sure if it'll end up coming to you, but if it is, I'll do a full report and work with our attorney on it. So we'll see what happens with that. Additionally, the state, at the state level, the Freedom to Read bill did not pass. So that was really disappointing for a lot of us, but we are still working with just making sure we're contacting our legislators and reminding them how important libraries are. There's been no talk about any book banning at the state level. You know, most people doubt the governor would even sign a bill that had any book banning legislation, but just now's when they start to budget. So if you have any relationships with your, with our legislators, it's always nice to remind them how important libraries are. And that's, just kind of what we're doing is our traditional advocacy that I normally do. I send a letter at the beginning of every year, just with a little flyer about the library to all of our legislators. So I'll just keep doing that. And then on the federal level, people are anxious to see what's going to happen in a few areas after President Trump or former President Trump becomes President Trump. So there's 3 areas that really people are looking at, which again, I did email Jack Bergman about it. The first area is E-rate funding. So that we get about $133,000 a year in savings from E-rate. It's a federal program. If you've looked at your phone bill, there's a tax on it. They're questioning the legality of that at the Supreme Court level. That's in front of the Supreme Court, but it's also, we were excited. I think you'll remember that I mentioned that we were going to provide hotspots, additional hotspots because of E-rate funding. And it looks like those rules might be walked back by some of the Republican congressmen, including Ted Cruz, who will be in charge of the FCC. So I did email him and just saying how important hotspots are to our communities, especially rural areas that don't have internet. So there's E-rate, we're watching that. There's also a talk of closing the Institute for Library and Museum Services. That's a federal agency, and their grant dollars come down to the state of Michigan, and then they grant it out to us, to the Library of Michigan. I don't know if that'll happen. It's just something that we're watching. And then finally, and along with that is talk of closing the Department of Education, which of course would affect our schools. We don't get a lot of funding through the Department of Education for public libraries, but some people do. A lot of research comes out of that. And then finally, we're just keeping an eye on any sort of talk of a national book ban. So we're hoping none of that happens, but it's just some of my top things that I'm watching for, and I know other libraries are looking for too. So it's always a great time to advocate to our elected officials about how important libraries are and really what we do for our communities. So, any questions about that?
Michelle, I want to thank you for your advocacy and for saying what's happening. Because we live in such a polarized world, sometimes even talking about the facts of the threats that are coming up the pipeline can feel scary. And I think your report laid out what's happening at the federal level really clearly. And I appreciate your advocacy in addressing those threats clearly too. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, I emailed Senator Cruz. I don't know how to say his name. I think it's Thune of South Dakota. He's on the part of the committee looking at the E-rate funding, and then of course Jack Bergman. Just so they know, they're worried. Part of it is tied up together with schools lending hotspots, and they're worried about kids getting those hotspots. And so public libraries are tied into it. So it might be kind of like someone said, like the baby with the bathwater. So, I don't know if they could carve out public libraries because it's so important to what we do and people finding jobs and people doing homework and citizens just being educated or medical appointments. There's so many things people use our hotspots for. So yeah, we'll just see what happens, and we can only advocate the best we can. So.
You made. Go ahead. That's all right. Go ahead.
Sam,
Go ahead.
and then Mike.
You made mention in your report something about tool library, and we were getting.
Oh yeah.
Can you tell us something more in detail?
Yeah, sure. So that was something East Bay wanted to take up as a project. So we have grant funding and a donor who's really interested in this project and donated about $5,000 towards it. So there's a shed. We got a shed out there at East Bay, and we're going to be collecting tools and just working with our lawyer about disclaimer forms and checking what tools to check out, to safe tools. So far, they've got a ratchet set, not ready to check out. We're gonna unveil it in May, because our Kelly, our cataloging librarian, is trying to figure out how to catalog a ratchet set. I'm not sure about the subject headings on that, but, so we'll be adding things with this grant money. It's pretty much all gonna fund for the whole tool library, and that'll just be at East Bay. Things that can fit into our totes that go between the libraries can be moved, and there's a way to mark it on the catalog. Otherwise, things like a leaf blower, you'll have to go out there and check it out.
I think there was some attention given to the disclaimers,
Oh, yeah.
like 3 years ago,
Mhm.
some discussion of, I don't know if that will help when you look at it again with the lawyer.
Yeah, our new lawyer already has it done. That's the best part about having a lawyer who represents, like, I don't even know how many libraries. It was done, she has it, and so we'll be ready.
I just had two things. One's a question on your report on the status of the Freedom to Read bill. You said it was not,
It died.
but was it voted on?
The House voted it out of committee, and when it went to Senate, they were waiting on one legislator. And the legislator wanted some amendments to it, but there wasn't enough time.
Right.
So it never came out of the
So
Senate.
it was one of the 250 bills that never got voted on during the lame duck. Okay.
Correct.
So that suggests to me that one strategy to follow is to simply advocate reintroduction of the bill
Yes, well,
to get it out.
I think, and which reminds me, and I forgot to write this down, which reminds me is they, just speaking with our lobbyists for the Michigan Library Association, they just don't think it'll pass in this, with the divided House, with the House in Republicans and, right, the Senate is majority Democrats. They are, right now, our lobbyist just thinks it's not gonna go. But if you remember what we did in December, when we added that little sentence to our collection development policy, I was on a statewide meeting, and we were like applauded for that action. So thank you for all of you for voting for that, because other libraries are looking to do that. So the idea is, like, we might not get legislation passed, but we can make our policies so that people and books aren't, basically books aren't discriminated on based on the content. So our attorney was on the call, and, she said, I can't, like I told you, not sure it'll stand up in court, but it seems legally viable, that one sentence we added. So we'll see. But yeah, other libraries, were, really excited, and we're gonna work on adding that to their policies.
Do we have a sense of where our legislative team was on that, our representatives?
I didn't look up the votes. I could look it up. I bet probably
It was
Betsy
only
voted
a committee
yes.
vote, right?
Yeah, it was only a committee vote. That's right.
Did they vote for the public support or anything like that? I mean, would it be helpful to know who to lean on? Who we need to, do we want to talk about our advocates, or maybe we want to convince our,
Yeah, I think
some others?
anytime we talk to our legislators is great, just reminding them. I know Betsy holds meetings here, sometimes Senator DeMoose holds meetings here. So just like getting here and talking to them, whether it's freedom to read legislation, or I know I think Senator DeMoose is on the finance committee. I don't know if he's I don't think he's chairing it. But just, reminding him about state aid, that always helps all libraries, increases to state aid. In the past, they've talked about capital grants, because buildings like ours and other places, and you have physical needs, so capital grants, stuff like that, I think. I can't imagine that the legislation will be passed, but anytime we can remind them how great we are, that'd be great.
It'd be useful to know who in the legislature is willing to vote against the Freedom to Read Act, the legislation.
Probably why it never came up for a vote. Probably why they tried to kill it.
The optics would be difficult, I'm sure.
Well, and I think we thought it was gonna be introduced of January of last year, and it wasn't. And so we kept being told, so I think it just got delayed, and like you said, there was 250 other bills.
Right. My second thing was on the question of the hot spots and monitoring that. Is there anything that I think Slotkin is on the Ag Committee. So So would it be useful to simply cue her up or let her know that that's an issue of importance because of its relationship to rural economic development?
Absolutely. I mean, literacy is a economic driver.
Yeah.
You know, we have
Right.
stats that like raising literacy of our communities is a huge economic driver for people, but I think that's a great idea. The other thing is too, about those hotspots is anything that we have E-rate funding on, we have to filter. So our hotspots that would get E-rate funding has to it's called SIPA, Child Internet Protection Act that was passed. So like here in our computer labs, all of our internet is filtered. You can ask for the filter to be turned off. If we get hotspots and it was funded, partially funded by E-rate, federal government, they will all be filtered. So, there's safeguards against people worrying that like kids are gonna get one and who knows, whatever, look at naughty things.
Access to broadband in rural communities is the broader umbrella
Right.
issue, however, so.
This is the Band-Aid.
Yeah, so the particular applications or restrictions or rules in any domain of practice is one thing, but in general, support for what our position could be put under this larger umbrella if it's part of our, at least the lip service representatives and elected officials give to the importance of internet access and broadband penetration into rural communities. So we could tie it to that larger
Yeah.
issue.
That's a great idea.
Did you say that there was some concern that kids might be using these hotspots for ill repute?
Yes. It was
So
in
if-
a quote in
if-
the article.
Does that mean our filtering does not work?
I don't know what that means. I think and maybe Senator Cruz doesn't know that they have to be filtered. He might not realize, or, it was just a quote in, I think a Newsmax article.
Susan? Yeah, Michelle, I have a couple questions. On the 21st of January, we're going to have a volunteer expo through United Way, and I just wondered if we're going to have a table, if we're going to have an opportunity for people who might want to volunteer at the library.
We're not gonna have a table. We don't have a lot of spots for volunteers right now. A few people come in and Heather has a group of volunteers that she uses all the time. We have a place on our website, but we didn't want to mislead people that we have a ton of volunteer opportunities. And I think the organizations that are gonna be present that day do have a lot of opportunities.
Okay.
So yeah, we won't have a table.
Okay, and another question is, I really appreciate Amy from Kingsley giving the presentation to the city about our interest in the Carnegie Building. And I just wondered where you think we go from here since that was not approved.
So I need to call back Jeff Gruman, just to find out more about the Clear Center. That's where TC Phil is, and TC Philharmonic. And they have a space over there. So I'm just looking at all the spaces. The city will meet February 10th and talk about all of their properties, because they have 2 other properties that aren't being used right now that could be of interest. And then I think really we're meeting internally as staff to come up with an idea, because I'd love to propose to the city for them to pay us to at least take care of the Con Foster collection. We haven't fleshed it out yet, and I'll bring it to finance and committee first. But this idea that those artifacts are sitting there, they've been sitting there for 10 years and no one's taking care of them. A really wonderful person, Terry Beamsley, is inventorying them, but it's one person per time. So we'll see, we're just thinking of that. I don't know if the city would have any interest. They used to pay the Historical Society to take care of that collection. And now it's just sat for 10 years. So we worry that the artifacts are degrading, who knows what's happening to them. So that's something we were thinking about moving, bringing to the committees and talking about in terms of care. I know there's 2D items in that collection that we don't have that we'd love to scan. They look like family albums, journals, books are over there. So maybe just trying to do that too. And then, and also looking at other places that could possibly be a place for a local history.
Okay. Another question is, so in your report and area about youth, you had all these programs for December, and your summary said that our literacy programming is way up, our interest in that, and then the after-school and the weekend programs were, after school, were lower. So I wanted you just to say a couple words about that, and also all the people that were the no-shows. It just, for some of the December programs, I just wondered if we have a new idea about how we can make sure that doesn't happen again.
You know, a lot of it is there was so much illness in December. And that's what we heard from a lot of families. So they sign up online to come to all of our events. And it was just so many people had sick kids, the flu, stomach things, strep throat. I mean, it was all going around. And we're just chalking it up to that, is that, you know, our reservation system sends email reminders. They don't, I guess, I don't think you can sign up for a text reminder, but that's the best we can do. We know that happens with families is sometimes it's just they get busy or their kid gets sick, and same with their after school programs. I mean, we keep offering them. And I think there's an ebb and flow to programming that just kind of naturally happens. We started Sunday story times. And so sometimes Kate will have, you know, 20 people in there, and sometimes she'll have 2. And, you know, we just don't know. That's just families being busy. But we just keep offering it, and then sometimes it'll get busier. So I don't think it's problematic yet. I just think it's maybe ages of kids and, you know, parents being busy.
Joe?
I looked at that too, or at least it caught my eye, that only 60% or somewhat less than 60% showed up, but that's still 168 people.
Yeah, it was a lot of people.
So,
Yeah.
you know, I'm saying, okay, so we didn't have 170 or 300, but, you know, it was, to me, it was a well-attended activity.
Yeah, our Happy Noon Day was, we thought maybe 80 people would show, and Paul was one of our volunteers and his wife. We had 212 people show up to that. So yeah, those events are still so busy, like Santa and the candy houses, that actually the staff said it was a little bit nice that it wasn't as crazy as always. And that was the same day that we were having our roof steamed from the ice school, so our front doors had to be closed, so everyone had to come through this room where the candy houses was happening. So it was an exciting day at the library, even with 40% of the people not showing. But yeah.
All right, I'm gonna say something.
Okay.
Since I'm usually more quiet, and then Susan, you can.
Okay.
I want to go back to the advocacy point, and one of the things I would like to encourage everyone to do is meet with your legislators when they're here in town, when they have their coffee hours. Not just because you always want something from them, but you want to be known by them. So if you get in the habit of going, and just like what you did with House Representative Bergman responding back, that would really help, so they begin to see your name, and then when they see you in person. And the other thing, Michelle, I'm gonna ask, if there's something that we need to really act on, would you make sure something goes out to us quickly so that we can activate, especially at the state level?
Yeah.
So, okay.
Yep, absolutely. And Congressman Bergman sent his aides when we were in DC for the Talking Book Library Award, and then one of his aides was in town, and I gave him a one-on-one tour of the library. So I appreciate Bergman's interest in our library, and it's always been positive.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, Susan, you had one question?
Yeah, this one is for Michelle and a financial question. So I read that we got this $5,000 donation for staff, and I wondered if we mainly use that for the gift cards for everybody at Christmas. Did that pretty much wipe that out, or
Yeah,
is there
pretty much.
still?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then when I look at our room rentals for this room and rooms in the building, it seems like most of our rooms we have not collected money from. Is that accurate? And do we have a plan for that? It seems like with all the technology, that we put in, I just wondered where we're at with that.
So our room rentals, if you look at our policy, it's, nonprofits or commercial services. And, we changed the policy, meeting room policy rules last month. And so I think there's one organization that might not be coming here. So our paid rentals, like the room is very busy, but it's not always paid rentals because we have so many partners. And so we want our partners to hold their meetings here because then they'll go use the other facilities. Or maybe they just haven't been here in a while and they get to see their library again. So I can give you a list if you want to see like who rents this room. I don't think that's patron privacy. But our other rooms are all free on purpose, and it is usually just, people needing a study room, books, Battle of the Books groups meet in the Thurlby room. So yeah, we don't charge for any of those rooms. So this room is, it's kind of back and forth. Like TCAPS wants to hold their open like office hours, and they'll be upstairs. That's free. So sometimes if we get a conflict, we'll put someone down here. Does that answer your question?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm just thinking about it because people ask me all the time, what does it cost to rent
Yeah.
at the library, or what's new, or that kind of
Yep.
thing. And then when I see those numbers, I just wonder how it all adds up.
Yeah, we have some regular HOAs that meet in here, and humanists meet in here every month. And yeah, that's probably it for the paid events.
Okay.
We
And
really keep this room busy with our own events.
And my last question is, and Danielle, feel free to go to the podium and say something about this with Michelle. It seems like with our investment income, we thought maybe under $10,000, 7,000 something, if I'm remembering it right. And instead it was 137 something. So I just thought for anybody that jumped out at them, if you just wanted to say more about that. Obviously, we didn't cash that out, and we don't know what the future holds, but I know the public is going to tap me and say, whoa, wow, talk about that.
Sure. I'm Danielle Baldwin, Finance and Human Resources Manager. We always conservatively estimate our investments for our revenue for the budget. So we just have no idea of whether it's going to be a down year or up year. Back in, 22, it was significantly bad. And so it was really good that we budgeted a small amount for that.
Yeah, I think that year we were negative $80,000 because even though we cashed nothing out, we realized no gains or losses. It still has to be on our balance sheet or in our budget. So after that year, that was kind of a shocker. We are super conservative. I think the year after 23, maybe we put 0, and then 24 we put 7 or 10.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to come up with $80,000 in your budget at the end of the year. So we're just being cautious.
I think it's helpful for people just to know the rhyme or reason why we do what we do. Thank you, Danielle. I'm all set.
Okay. Anything, Joe?
I'm just, to the other trustees, a reminder that, we're at the mercy of the market. And if it goes down, we have to record it as going down, and that's why we didn't, that's why we moved that investment into the class. Isn't that what
My class, yeah.
into my class. And it paid off. Doesn't mean next year it won't be down again, but I think this is a better return. We're getting a better return than we did before from Chase.
Okay. All right. Let's move on with old business, and we have 2 issues. One is the resolution of the 2025 member library agreement payments, and I'll entertain a motion on that issue. Who moved it? Susan, okay. Okay, Jennifer. Hey, any questions or discussion? Okay, seeing none?
I do.
Oh, you do? Oh, well, go ahead.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Danielle, can you give us a little insight into the amounts that we have listed here? For instance, $255,205 for Fife Lake.
Sure.
What was it last year?
It was about 30% less than that.
I think
Because
it was like 179.
yeah,
So all of them have gone up substantially this year
yeah, because of the millage.
because of the.
We matched the increase that we received in property taxes for the millage and distributed it to the member libraries instead of waiting a year like we used to.
I would like to see these libraries come in and pick up their checks at our first board meeting. We could have them here and hand them out. and
Vicky
make it a
usually
party.
does from Peninsula, so.
Yeah, Vicky is really sorry. Her husband booked a last minute trip to Tampa, and so she texted me like, "I'm so sorry I won't be here." She's usually here, and the other libraries,
Yeah.
we usually just put it in the mail.
She's very well traveled.
Yeah, and
I'm
she.
very jealous. of
Yes,
her travels.
I
Solid
completely.
t-shirts that they give at the golf events or something.
What-
Maybe,
That's a
maybe.
good idea.
Throw that out.
Usually we put it in the mail.
Right.
That was panache, but-
No.
Okay. Any further discussion on this motion? Seeing none? All those in favor say aye.
Yes, it's a money
Should be a
vote.
roll call.
What? Oh, gosh, right, sorry. Money vote. Thank you.
Starting with Adgers. Yes. Ortine.
Yes.
Gedman.
Yes.
Dale.
Yes.
Bakizer.
Yes,
Jones.
Aye.
And Vickery.
Yes.
okay, motion carries. Thank you. And the next motion is approval of the strategic planning consultant. The suggested motion is the director be authorized to engage MCLS for strategic planning services. Before we have discussion, I would like to have a motion in play.
I'll make a motion that we award the preparation of the strategic plan to MCLS, I believe is their title.
Okay,
I'll second that.
thank you. Okay, discussion. Susan, and then anybody else have their hand up?
I just want the board to know that the finance committee, we interviewed 4 different companies at a half hour, 20 minutes to a half hour at a time. It was a very rigorous process. Michelle did a lot of the lead work to give us as much information as possible, and it was a unanimous vote, and we feel good about why we selected this particular company.
Thank you. Any good, Mike? Wait. Oh, Paul, sorry, I didn't see your hand.
And I just wanted to mention that through the interviews, it made clear that we were paying a large amount of money for this, but really, it is going to be on us to make this strategic process work well. They're facilitators, they are consolidators, they build the strategic plan visually, but it'll really be up to us in the community to make the strategic plan work. And I think it was clear talking to them that they're very capable of doing so and have done to a lot of libraries, but it really falls back on us to do a great deal of the work.
Joe?
Also to point out that this is the same firm we used for our last strategic
Oh,
plan.
cool.
And it's local to Michigan, which for me personally, when I go to spend money, especially if it's a lot of money, I'd rather give it to my neighbor or at least to my region before I give it to, somebody down in Boca Raton. So that was one of the reasons why they got at least my vote.
Mike?
Paul sort of addressed what I wanted to query a little bit. But those of us who didn't participate in the interaction with the group, and we see the product of what they proposed, but the question I always have about people being hired to help with strategic plans for these kinds of agencies or organizations is that there's a question of who's actually producing the articulated plan. We clearly understand, we have practice with them, so we kind of know how this is going to go. But being comfortable with what Paul is suggesting, that the obligation and duty is still of the library, the library, to make the plan. We hire people to help us collect data that helps with that plan, to do some comparative analysis of what we do versus what others do, so we can, address best practices and so on. But, so I'm relieved to hear it characterized as the duty still falls on the library. I mean, it's still our job to do that. And I remember during the last strategic plan, there was it wasn't dissatisfaction, but there was some sense of not everyone felt exactly included in the plan. The people doing the plan and a couple of trustees who were involved in that kind of knew a lot about it. The rest of us didn't really know much about it. And I kind of felt like I didn't know what I was really saying yes to, because I wasn't part of the building part of it, and I don't think we all should be, because then we're just mucking up the works. But still, knowing that we still have a duty and obligation to pay attention and participate to the very end, and so that when we pass the strategic plan, everybody owns it, because everybody knows what it is, and everybody knows why we're doing what we're doing. Not just that we have a plan for spending money for another block of years, but we know where we're headed, what we're trying to accomplish, where we see the library and its relationship to the broader community. So
Do you
it's
have
just more of
something?
a comment than a question. I'm relieved to hear it characterized in that way, and I hope that is in fact the case, that everyone at the end feels like that this is the library strategic plan and not MCLS's.
Do you have anything specific that you want to see happen this time?
No, it's process things, participation. It's more of an obligation. We have an obligation to stay involved.
Can you take over?
Sure. And I would make just a couple of comments, is that part of their process will involve facilitation with staff, facilitation with the entire Board of Trustees, and then there'll be, if we choose, because they're flexible in terms of how we do this, but then there'll be a couple of lead trustees who will go more into depth, particularly in outreach into the community. And so there's the opportunity, depending on whether you raise your hand and whether there's enough openings, that you could be involved, but you will, at a minimum, have the opportunity to sort of frame how the project is done.
Yeah, and I talked to Jan about that, because that's what happened last time. And last time it was 2021, we were still closed. Everything was done virtually. Yeah, and so we got pretty good input, but we couldn't do a forum. Like, they'll be here doing forums here in the library where we invite people. And last time, I think it was Susan and Mary were a part of the committee. So, we try to do 2 and not more. So there's no quorum. I mean, 3 is not a quorum either. But so there's like a core committee that will do a lot of the work, but then like getting input, and part of that is that board retreat in September from all of you. So the goal is to have it done and adopted at the December meeting, so that December or at the latest January, so then that becomes our plan for the next 3 years, 3 to 5. Yeah, whatever is decided.
Okay. All right. Okay, everybody ready for the vote? Wait, is this a money vote?
Well, I think we should list what we're agreeing to pay,
Okay,
and so it would be a money vote then.
all right. Would you like to do the listing?
Sure.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that, or was the motion already made?
Yeah, well, you started it, and
Yeah, you
Paul,
started.
and
And
I'll
I
second
just
it.
want to make sure, since we sort of prolonged the information gathering, do we have a solid number?
Yeah, it's on page 7, $33,150,
Okay.
Oh, yeah, I have it.
not to exceed.
Do you have it in front of you, Joe?
I'm sorry, what?
I said, do you have it in front of you?
No, I don't.
Okay,
You have it in front of you?
yes, I do. I took it right here.
Well, I thought we just said the money. All right,
Yeah.
I'll make the motion that we allow MCLS to assist in the writing of the strategic plan, and that we authorize the director to pay them not more than $33,150, which should encompass everything that we're looking to do.
Okay, and the seconder, are you comfortable with the amendment to the motion?
Yes.
The add-on, I mean, not amendment. Okay.
Susan or Jennifer?
Susan or Jennifer?
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, if you needed another second, a second with an expression of gratitude to the committee for spending all that time and to everybody. Yes.
Yeah, I'm glad you all did that. Yeah. Okay, we're ready for the vote?
Ready? Starting with Adgers.
Yes.
Boyteen.
Yes.
Gedman.
Sam?
Dale.
Yes.
Kaiser.
Yes.
Jones.
Aye.
And Vickery.
Yes.
7 aye.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you very much, everybody. Okay, new business. The resolution, annual approval of routine invoices over $25,000. I'll entertain a motion for that.
So moved.
Thank you, Sam. A second?
I'll support.
Okay. Any discussion or questions?
I just wanted to point out one thing, Mary Lee,
Yes.
just so that you know that this, everything on here is what we normally do, except for I did add STT security services. Since, we've decided to use them year round, it is over my spending limit. So they're on here,
Okay.
along with everything else. These are things that we always pay.
Okay. Any other questions, comments?
Just a general comment. What makes an invoice routine? Is it just that it's recurring or that it's? I guess I'm just a little confused on that term.
Yeah, most of these are monthly bills, except for the insurance bill. I think is it broken up in two, or is it comes in one?
It's one.
It's just one. STT security, comes by twice a month, and Northland Cooperative, we send them 2 checks every time we get a state aid disbursement. So according to the policies, like, I can't like skirt the policies like by, let's say the, their, whatever, like the SCT total 70, but each bill is only 1,400, so it's kind of like, but it still accumulates to more than, more than my 25,000 spending limit.
Okay. Starting with Adgers.
Yes.
Boyteen.
Yes.
Gedman.
Yes.
Dale.
Yes.
Kaiser.
Yes.
Jones.
Aye.
And Vickery.
Yes.
7 aye.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you very much. And now we're at public comment. Does any of the public wish to make a comment? Seeing none. Next, we go to trustee comment. Any trustees want to make a comment or a suggestion or recommendation? Anything to be on the next? Yes.
I just wanted to say thank you to the director and to the staff for the volunteer fair that we're going to have this coming week. They have along with United Way, there's a great number of really wonderful causes. And I think it's the library being more than just a place for information, it's also a place that we can build that better community. I think it's really important. I'm so happy that you're doing it.
Well, the news came in today, so it should be covered in the news tonight. So there'll be 3 meetings total, and I want to thank you for this idea. I think this originally came from you, Paul, but there'll be, this one is more things for adults to do. There'll be one, I think, in May or June. That will be more directed at family organizations where families can volunteer, and then there'll be one in September that will be more for students to volunteer. We have a very robust teen volunteer program here. It's on our website. Our shelves are so clean because they come in dust. But they also do videos. If you haven't been on our teen page, it's one of, I think it's number 8 in terms of people looking at our website is our teen page. Check it out. Check out the teen volunteer program. There's so many cool volunteering programs here for teens, but that'll be for other organizations and teens. So I think it's going to work out great, and United Way has been a wonderful partner. So
I didn't realize I know you said there were 3, but that's really interesting staging and,
That's a great idea.
yeah. So they just have so many organizations that they get volunteers for. So that's why it was a really great partner for us, because to solicit all those, they already had them. It's just a great partnership. So.
Thanks, Mary Lee. Okay. So Michelle, just a comment. This emergency action plan that the staff went through and what you wrote about the 24 behavior incidents in December, I just wondered if the board should be on any kind of training for that emergency action plan, what your thoughts are on that, or if that'll somehow be written into our strategic plan somehow. But with all of the natural disasters going on, the LA fires in particular, libraries are really being like shelters for people and hubs to get information and what have you. So I wondered about that.
So our emergency action plan is on our staff portal, and I brought it to, I think, facilities and finance, but you might have not been at that meeting. We don't want it public because it has our active shooter, like all of our emergency hiding places. It has all that stuff.
Okay.
So we didn't want that out in the public. And it really is more for staff. It's written for staff. I mean, we have all of our emergency exit stuff for trustees. If you want to see it, I could email it to you. It's just one of those things we just wanted to keep more on the internal side. So, did that answer your question?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. And Mary Lee, my other comment is there's a new organization in United Way is the fiduciary called Crime Stoppers. And on the 30th of January at Cambria, they're having their launch. And this will truly be the only anonymous tip line in the community. Some of you know that there's one through the schools, but that still goes through local law enforcement. This is channeled to third provider, if you will. So you're all welcome to come and hear what it's about and be involved. And everything from missing persons, the tip line serves, to any kind of crime. People are really concerned about the schools and kids and what's going on, and just another tool for the community to use. So that's it.
Joe?
Michelle, I wanted to ask you some questions
Yeah.
as well as part of this, or not really ask questions, but I
Looked over the departmental reports, and I wanted to say, first of all, to Adult Services, it caught my eye that they're writing, creating procedure documents for the new hires, which is like a great idea. Just wanted to recognize that, and I hope that you'll let us know how it turns out, and that we're producing a better employee after they go through it. Brett mentioned in his report that there was bathroom graffiti, several clogged toilets, and those were the problems. I guess he was also busy assembling furniture and the like. Are these related to the folks that are on suspension now? So this is a different experience that we had?
Yeah, it's an anonymous person who has been, we think it might be the person who left notes about the period products in the bathrooms. Or it might not be the same person who emailed the board, but it is someone. We've noticed our period products vandalized. Someone vandalized the wall with, I will tell you that, just a quick warning, that is pretty awful. But the person like scratched into the men's bathroom wall, something like, all trans people should die. So we've had some of that happening, and we don't know who's doing it. So, we try to keep an eye on our cameras, but how many people a day walk into the downstairs men's room? But Brett did a great job. Our cleaning crew found it, cleaned it off. Brett's checking them every day. And then it was scratched into the new drywall. So he, with the pen, so he actually drywalled over, or not drywalled, but plastered over it. And that's why there's a different color in that bathroom. Because he thought he had the right color and he didn't. But we're working on that. So a little like, is it hate crimes? But stuff like that. We have noticed that we put new signs in the men's room. That is basically what I put in that email, and it seems to have stopped. So we're hopeful. There is someone who's leaving notes like that in books at Books A Million. I don't know if you saw this on Overheard in Traverse City, So there is a person who's leaving really hate-filled, violent messages in books at Books A Million. And so we're just keeping an eye out for it. Things like, again, warning that not everyone will, might be upset by hearing this, like all women over 18 should die, should be put to death. Things like that. So we've been warned about that. We haven't found any notes like that in our books. Long ago, there was a patron who was leaving anti-Semitic notes in our books, and that person was asked to never return. So that person was in our library, and he was told to leave. So I don't know if that's the same person who's leaving the notes at Books A Million or putting the notes on our wall, but our staff is alerted, and we're just keeping an eye out.
At STT, they have a clear understanding
Of who is not allowed in and for what period.
Yeah, it's not that many people, but yeah, you get to know everybody. So, and the police know. So typically, our process is we suspend the person. If they keep coming back, then we'll actually trespass them with the police. And then if they return after they've been trespassed with the police, we just call 911 and they'll come get them.
Okay.
Anything else?
Yeah, I wanted to say thank you to Amanda Tobin.
Tobin, yeah.
She apparently worked very hard on the event that only 60% showed up. She deserved at least a thank you from the board.
She's one of our newer staff in the youth department, and yeah, she was working that day. Thank you for saying that.
That's all.
Okay, all right.
Glad we're wrapping on a high.
The what?
I said I'm glad we're wrapping on a positive.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. Okay, I entertain a motion for adjournment.
Second.
Okay.
We-
Aw, you don't have to, Joe.
I know,
Okay.
it's gonna get dark in here.
Oh, all right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you.
Signing it.
Oh, that's right. Do yours.